Invisible Man, or Toomei Ningen in the original Japanese, and also known as the Invisible Avenger, was released on December 29, 1954, almost 2 months after the release of the first Godzilla film. It was produced by Toho, runs for 70 minutes, filmed in black and white in 1.37:1 film aspect ratio. It is the first entry in Toho's informal series of transforming human films, later followed by The H-Man, The Human Vapor, and The Secret of the Telegian. It is the second Japanese adaptation of the Invisible Man story and the second to have effects director Eiji Tsuburai's involvement, after Daiei's 1949 film The Invisible Man appears. Indeed, Invisible Man at times feels less like an organic story and more like a highlight reel of Invisible Man effects techniques that Tsuburaya didn't get to use the first time around. It was directed by Motoyoshi Oda, a reliable director who typically handled up to 7 films in a year. For perspective, Invisible Man was completed 4 months before Oda's next film and his best-known work, Godzilla Raids Again, and only 2 months after his previous film, Ghost Man. The leads of Ghost Man, Seizaburo Kawazu and Miki Sanjo, return in The Invisible Man, along with composer Kyosuke Kami. In an interesting twist, The Invisible Man was not produced by Tomoyuki Tanaka, producer of darn near every science fiction film made by Toho for over 40 years. Rather, it was produced by Takeo Kita, the art director behind dozens of kaiju eiga throughout the 60s and 70s. The film opens with a compelling scene of an Invisible Man's suicide. A driver in Tokyo traffic strikes an unseen obstacle, and when he stops to look and a crowd gathers, a dead man materializes underneath his car. And that, by the way, is the extent of Haruo Nakajima's involvement in this movie. A suicide note indicates that the deceased is a former soldier who became invisible thanks to military science, and that there is one more member of his invisible squad at large in Japan. Invisible Man paranoia settles over the nation, and, wouldn't you know it, there are just a few unscrupulous dirtbags eager to take advantage of it. Specifically, Yajima, the proprietor of the Black Ship nightclub, and his sleazy Lieutenant Ken, and their gang of drug runners and enforcers. Yajima's gang pulls off a series of high-profile heists disguised as Invisible Men. Let that sink in for just a minute. And the paranoia balloons into full-blown hysteria. Finally, Yajima goes too far when he bribes an old night watchman into granting his gang access to his dockyard in exchange for a large sum to help treat his blind granddaughter. The heist goes off smoothly, but instead of paying him off, Ken kills him, while disguised as an Invisible Man. Unbeknownst to Yajima or any of the goons at the Black Ship, the old man and his granddaughter live in the same boarding house as the true last surviving Invisible Man, and he is not about to take the old man's death lying down. Invisible Man is a mishmash of genres, including suspense, mystery, crime thriller, horror, and romance. It actually presents very little in terms of science fiction. There is a single expository scene describing how the Invisible Men were created, but that's pretty much it. There's also no moral lesson or ethical quandary about the Invisible Man experiment. After the exposition is out of the way, it turns into a kind of Invisible Man superhero story. This is in stark contrast with Daiei's earlier film, The Invisible Man Appears, which did have a moral, the film is bookended with it, and which did actually depict the creation of the Invisible Man and the ethical quandary faced by the main characters. It was also a slightly better crime thriller with more interesting characters than an Invisible Man. That said, the cast behind these two-dimensional characters is actually pretty stellar all around. We've got Seizaburo Kawazu as the unassuming Nanjo, an Invisible Man disguised as a clown, who has a sweet relationship with the girl Mari, played by Keiko Kondo, and her grandfather, played by Kamatari Fujiwara, which forms the emotional core of the plot. Miki Sanjo plays nightclub singer Michio, while Kenjiro Uemura plays Ken, her imposing and threatening suitor. We have a rare performance by Fuyuki Murakami in a non-scientist role as a scruffy newspaper editor. One of the best performances has to be the always great Yoshio Tsuchiya, playing a reporter hot on the trail of the Invisible Man. His scenes with the Invisible Kawazu are superbly acted, with Tsuchiya convincingly acting against nothing. Minoru Takada, at the midpoint of his career, is a little disappointing as Yajima, a cliched gangster boss. Takada does get a significant fight scene during the film's climax, although he's fighting the Invisible Man, so it's basically just him taking swings and flopping around. The rest of the cast is filled in with the usual roster of contract supporting actors at Toho, although, if you pay close attention, there's actually fewer actors than you might think. Several actors actually appear in multiple scenes throughout the film, filling in as nightclub patrons, commuters, or police detectives. An honorable mention should be made of Noriko Shigegama, who plays the nightclub dancer, strutting her stuff in The Black Ship. As with The Invisible Man Appears, special effects director Tsuburaya depicts the Invisible Man with a variety of special techniques, although it seems that physical props are not as prominent as they were in the earlier film. We do still get a piano that plays itself and some eerie footstep effects in loose sand, but a fair amount of the newer effects were filmed separately and composited so that they appear to be floating. For example, when Najo reviews a checkbook for clues, or during one of the film's more obnoxious moments, when various instruments play themselves at the nightclub. There's a lengthy chase scene during the climax with a self-driving moped, although there's some pretty obvious wirework involved. Of course, it wouldn't be a true Invisible Man movie without one of these scenes. In contrast to the unveiling of the Invisible Man as depicted in The Invisible Man Appears, and even the original 1933 Universal film, instead of a flurry of bandage wrappings, we have a slower reveal as Najo cleans off his makeup, revealing nothing underneath. The principle behind the effect is the same though. In The Invisible Man Appears, the actor wears an all-black bodysuit and performs the scene against a black backdrop, which is composited into the scene afterwards. Here, Kawazu is filmed against a black backdrop, wearing his full clown makeup, but instead of cleaning it off, he's actually wiping black paint on top of his makeup job, which after compositing disappears into the background. Despite my quibbles with the plot and characterizations, this is actually a pretty well-directed film. Oda leans into the thriller aspect of the plot with some key moments of tension, such as when the commuters realize there is an invisible man among them, or when Nanjo stealthily pursues Yajima and Ken into the cellar of the Black Ship. The score is composed by Kyosuke Kami, who was known for his jazzy soundtracks. He shows some restraint with the Invisible Man's music though, which greatly enhances the film's atmosphere. In the final analysis, I think this is an inferior Invisible Man story when compared with The Invisible Man Appears. However, it avoids the fatal mistake, in my opinion, of being a dull movie. It can actually be quite entertaining, despite its faults. And to realize that this cast and crew churned out this film in only 2 months really underscores their commensurate professionalism and talent. I rate this film 3 out of 4 stars. At the time of this recording, Invisible Man has not had an official release in the United States.